Studio in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stomp.
All right, Stomp, episode 87. I'm going to crack my drink.
87. Happy New Year.
How was your holiday break?
It was all right. Pretty quiet. I've been a little under the weather, unfortunately. C'est la vie.
You got my cough. Passed it on to you.
I've had a cough forever. It seems like everybody's passing it around. So, but I'm like 90% better, thank goodness.
Yeah, I've had that cough for weeks now. And it's fine most of the day.
Yeah.
If I do some exercise, it'll kick up once I stop exercising. Even kicks in when I try to go to sleep at night.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't have a fever or anything, but I had like full body aches, stomach pain, all kinds of weird stuff going on. But so put a crimp in my my outdoor adventure plans over the last few weeks.
Yeah, was Santa good to you? Did you get any good presents?
A couple little things, nothing major. You know, me and the missus played it pretty low key this year. But I got a new electric razor, so I can shave my head.
That's good.
In like 30 seconds flat. How about you?
Yeah, it's pretty depressing when you get older. Like you don't get presents. I got an Eddie Bauer like flannel shirt, and I got a I forget what else did I get. Like maybe socks or something, and that was it. We were in Florida though, so we toured like the Kennedy Space Center and did all that stuff. So I'd rather have experiences than stuff at this point.
Yeah, well, Mrs. Stomp's down in Florida right now. Actually, she's planning on hitting Disney tomorrow. She's down with her family. I just couldn't get the time off, so. But yeah, she's gonna hit Disney, and I guess the weather's been pretty good, and she's missing all the rain and snow up here. It's like, what a nightmare. Yeah. It's such a mess up here.
Well, good for her. It's going to be magical. I was thinking about her on my time off because I was listening to a fair amount of podcasts when we were flying and going for walks and stuff, and I discovered that there is a cat cult. There's a cult that's dedicated to cats, and I thought that would be like a perfect religion for you and Mrs. Stomp.
A religion?
Yes. Yeah. Are you on the market for a new religion?
No, I'm good. But tell me more.
Well, it's a cult. It's a I'll put this in the show notes. But there is this podcast called The Opportunist, and it's all about these stories about like normal people that take a turn for the worst, and they basically take advantage of people. So. They have a 4-part series on a lady by the name of Cheryl Ruthven, who started out, I think she was like a member of a Pentecostal church. So Pentecostal is like they speak in tongues and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to be like really interesting, like religious ceremonies, singing and dancing and all kinds of stuff. But she was a member of a congregation. She ended up becoming like one of the preachers, had a falling out with one of the heads of that church, and ended up taking like all of the parishioners to a new church. She was out in Washington State. Somehow she got way into it, and it turned into a cult. So she started doing all this new age stuff or whatever. But she came up with this like thing where she explained to her followers that in order for it's the same deal, like the end times are coming, the world is going to end. So everyone's convinced that the world's going to end. So she moved everyone from Washington to Tennessee, I think. And then when they got to Tennessee, she convinced everybody that, I guess there's a verse in the Bible where it says everyone everyone's going to disappear except for 144,000 people. And so she basically just said to everybody that in order for you to be one of the 144,000 people that survives on Earth, you need to make sure that you have a bunch of cats in your house, because the angels that come down to save the people are going to,
like cats.
They're going to go through the souls of the cats. So basically, like when everything goes bad, the angels are going to come down and save 144,000 people. The way they're going to get down there is through the souls of the cats, and then the cats are going to decide who gets to survive the apocalypse. So basically, she's just making sure that like all her followers have like 40 or 50 cats in their house at any one time. And she started like a cat sanctuary as well. So
she's hedging her bets.
I guess
as many cats as possible.
Exactly. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about you and Mrs. Stomp, and then I was like thinking, like, isn't it ironic, like if the world came to an end, like you and Mrs. Stomp could rely on Daphne to make the decision on whether or not you, disappear, or if you get to, stay on Earth. You guys are goners.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think the Bible also says, the Bible also says, beware of false prophets. This lady sounds like one of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, of course. But I just think it's pretty cool. Like, if you're going to join a cult, you might as well join a cat cult.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
if you're in the market.
Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. But the podcast is called The Opportunist, and I'll link it in the show notes. But anyhow, that's the holidays. That's what I was doing, was listening to podcasts about cat cults.
Nothing about hiking or anything like that.
No.
Oh boy. So you went down south though, right? You were in Florida for what? 2 weeks?
A week, little over a week. So yeah.
Yeah.
Just chilling on the beach, walking, going to the Kennedy Space Center, going out to eat, getting coffee. Mm-hmm. It's pretty relaxing.
You getting your jogging in?
Not much. I had this cough going on, but I've been running the last couple of days.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the snow sort of put a crimp on my plans. I was running that out to Osceola Trailhead. Mm-hmm. Now it's packed for snow. Nordic. It's packed for Nordic skiing. So sort of shut the door on that. I don't have those small, compact, like Dion snowshoes for running, but I was considering it. But I don't know. Now that I'm feeling better, I want to get back, and all the roads are dry as a bone around here at the moment. So I'm hoping to get back out there running again.
Yeah, I know. I was just up a couple of days ago hiking, and it feels like early spring. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But the snowmobile stuff must be like there's nothing going on at this point, right?
Oh yeah, it's dead. The owner of Northern Extremes told me this morning that they're if he was a betting man, it would be January 20th before Bretton Woods opens. And I have it listed here, but the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails is basically saying that the trails are closed at this point, essentially. Yeah.
Another weird.
Yeah, super weird. Yeah, weirder than most. I mean, last year was sort of a wash, but this is really getting delayed.
Wow. All right. Well,
it's super frustrating.
I'm hoping for a couple of storms. I was hopeful, but anyway, Stomp, you put together, and again, I've been talking about like putting merchandise together, so I'm going to give feedback, and I probably should shut my mouth because I'm too lazy to actually do something, and you actually did do something. But we do have SLASR merchandise. So there's a link tree on our Instagram. I'm going to post some stuff on Facebook as well. If you want to buy gear, you can get t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, whatever you want on there. Stomp went a little wild with the merchandise.
Oh, yeah. One and done. Like, just do it. Just throw everything up there. Leave it alone. Yeah, I did some research. I mean, it's up. It's all the stuff is up on Cafe Press, which is sort of old school probably for that type of thing. But I just couldn't find anything else for the moment. So we're doing some more research. But you got a whole bunch of stuff up there. So people were asking. So I just wanted to get folks off my back. So you get stickers, you get all kinds of crazy stuff up there. So
Yep, whatever you want to buy. There's a ton of merchandise on there. So, and again, I didn't want to get into this like offline. I feel more comfortable like addressing this live on the show because I don't know why. It feels like it's less awkward. But like any merchandise that you put up there that has a picture of me, we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to buy a photo of me. Like my kids are making fun of me. They're like, "Oh, Dad, he put up like a legal notebook with your photo on it. Like we could buy one of those." And I was like, I have to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, I partly did that out of curiosity, like who would actually do that. So that was more of a test. Like let's put some bizarre stuff up there and see how crazy some of these listeners are.
Less is more, Stomp. Less is more.
Right.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So one of the good things I think about not having the snowmobile stuff going on, Stomp, is we got the buddy hike coming up on the 14th. I'm going to actually...
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to actually get the emails out to everybody, and we're going to be hiking Mount Pierce on January 14th. We'll see how that goes. But excited to get some new hikers out there. I think there's a bunch of people that signed up that don't have a lot of winter hiking experience, so it should be fun.
Yeah. Sounds good. Oh, I had a picture of this gal here, Rebecca Schubert, but I can give you the background on this little story that's listed up there. I'm jumping ahead, aren't I?
Yes.
I'm just so antsy. I haven't done this in a while. I'm out of practice.
Settle down.
Yeah, but back to the buddy hike. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I won't have to work, but it's shaping up as if it'll be open.
Yes. But next up is advertising with SLASR. What do you want to talk about here?
Well, I mean, we are up and running. There's a whole bevy of different advertising options and things that we're offering to anybody that wants to tap into the SLASR audience. And, we're rolling in some pretty good numbers week to week. So we have a few folks that signed on, and we're looking forward to having more advertisers join us over the next several weeks and months, and we'd be glad to have you. So if you are interested in advertising with us, just drop an email to SLASR podcast, SLASR podcast @gmail.com, and we'll set you up with all the information. So it's pretty exciting.
It is. Advertise with us if you want. We'll give you a nice spot, and you'll get tons of people inquiring. So good time, Stomp. The next thing here is you've got a link about mallet finger, and this actually, so mallet finger, like mallet, like a hammer, and this actually piqued my interest because I have one of these. I don't think I've ever talked
that's
to you
really
about
interesting.
this. I have one.
Well, I have a brand new one now. I don't know if you can see it on the
Look at
camera.
Stomp has a broken finger. It's his middle finger too, so he's chucking me the middle finger.
Yeah, it's like it's like I can't do anything right now. I can't floss my teeth. I can't do it's like my left hand too. Yeah, I didn't know if I had talked about this, but it was so nasty. I was trying to get a spot off of a piece of rug, and mallet finger, essentially you hyper flex the tip of one of your fingers, and I heard a pop immediately, and that to me means avulsion fracture. So basically what happens is the ligament survives, but it rips a piece of bone off the tip of your finger. So immediately the tip of your finger droops. So you have to stabilize it in a straight position for like 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, in some cases, I guess from what I've read, you can do surgery, but the outcomes are pretty similar, whether you do surgery or not. So what a nightmare. When'd you get yours?
Oh God, like I probably had mine like 12 years ago. I used to ref high school wrestling. So when the kids were younger, I used to coach high school wrestling, and then I just couldn't do the time commitment, so I got into reffing, and I ref for about 5-6 years. Had a kid, heavyweight, like this kid was probably 250 pounds, just rolled on my hand in a I don't know, a pinning situation or whatever, and I could just hear a pop, and I never really did anything to it. Eventually, I think I just taped it up and kept it taped for like weeks at a time, but it was really painful, and you can sort of still see. It's not as pronounced anymore, but basically what a mallet finger is like you're permanently, it's bent at the tip of your finger, which is weird. So
yeah, I don't know if you can see mine. See, mine's pretty straight now.
Yeah.
Like for the last 4 weeks, it was literally just drooped like 45 degrees.
Yeah. So what are the odds? Both of the co-hosts of the SLASR podcast have mallet fingers.
It sounds like a new cult.
Yep, we'll post pictures in the show notes for you. So moving on, Stomp, there's a hiker that is tackling the 100. So explain this to me. So the 100 highest is the 100 highest peaks in New Hampshire, I'm assuming, and then a lot of these peaks, like many of them are 4,000 footers, but there's a bunch that also involve bushwhacks as well. So my understanding, if I'm reading this correctly, is that Rebecca Schubert, and I think there's another person with her, maybe a guy named Matt, if I caught it correctly, they are looking to do complete the 100 highest peaks in 12 days. Is that even possible?
That's what I thought it was originally, but I've been talking to other folks, and that it was just a misinterpretation of that original post. Somebody had sent it to me, and I read it the same way. Like, wait a minute, she's going to do this before January 3rd, and then of course there was that massive torrential rainstorm that came in, and come to find out, it was not a hard, stop date. And word is that she's out there doing it now, so she's still trying to accomplish it. So best of luck. I mean, these are the 100 highest that are in New England, so it covers the highest throughout New England.
Oh, it's New England. All right. I think she's doing it with a hiking partner, a guy named Matt that I've been following along on there's a Facebook group and I'll add this to the show notes, called the New Hampshire 100 to 500 highest mountains. And they have been moving along on quite a bit. So to me, it looks like it is a single season winter New Hampshire 100 highest is what it is. So they're calling it the SSWNH 100. So single season winter New Hampshire 100. So it's not 12 days, it's the winter season.
Okay. Yeah. Still, that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff going on, Stomp, too, that it isn't in the show notes, but there's and I got to talk to Mike. I think he's a guide from Redline. He's been posting that there is a gentleman that he's hiking with that is doing a single season winter 4,000 footer attempt over 70 years old, which I think is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So he's over 70. He's going to do a single season winter. And then there's another guy that I follow, and I got to give him a shout out because he's very good about like posting on the New England trail conditions. Liam Cooney, I don't know if you know that name or not, but he had finished. I know he's a young guy. He's under 30. He's previously completed the New Hampshire Red Line, the White Mountain Red Line / Trace, and then he also completed the New Hampshire 500 highest a couple of weeks ago. So shout out to Liam Cooney, who is a pretty prolific hiker in New Hampshire. I've seen him pop up quite a bit, and I see that he's on this 100, 500 highest site, talking about how he finished it.
Yeah, I have an update here actually for Rebecca. So she's at 23 out of 100 so far, and it's a winter single season New Hampshire 100 highest.
Yep.
23 out of 100.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The other one, while we're doing these updates of hikers that we know, Rebecca Sperry, who's doing the 14-month red line, she's up over 40% completion, I think, at this point, too.
Mm-hmm.
So
fantastic.
Everybody's so busy completing goals and doing stuff, Stomping. You're not even hiking anymore.
Me, yeah. I just sit around and edit this podcast, and it's fun.
Yeah, well, I got stuff going on, but anyway, so moving on to the next topic here, Waterville Valley Resort expansion is moving forward, Stomp. So I don't really know much about this. I didn't even know. So the Sununu family owns Waterville Valley, like the same guy that's involved, that's the governor right now?
Or they're invested into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure to what degree, but they're definitely part of it somehow.
Got it. And then
they're heavily invested.
Got it. And then from what I'm reading, then what the plan is that they're going to have some kind of a high-speed lift that goes from the village of Waterville all the way up to one of the peaks of Tecumseh.
Well, it gets worse than that. So any fans of some of those Grand Traverse hikes and Hazelton Brook and this and that will be disappointed, because from what I'm reading in this article is that they're going to tap into the south face of Green Mountain, which is one of the peaks along the way when you're doing the Grand Traverse from Welch Dickey. So, you know, if you're heading north, you come up to Foss and then over to Green Mountain. So they're planning on just, in conjunction with the U.S. Forest Service, apparently, they're looking at making another 140 additional acres skiable. And it says here, 15 new trails and glades on the south side of Green Peak Summit. And that's just like, to me, that's sort of heartbreaking. I mean, there's just beautiful remote terrain in there. And to be honest with you, there is no south side of Green Peak, so it doesn't quite make sense. I mean, there's definitely an eastern side, and that would make sense if you were to ski back down to Waterville, but there is no real south side to Green Peak. It's sort of strange. But anyway, some plans are in the work.
All right, I didn't pick that up that it was going to impact hiking trails. I just thought it was similar to like the news that with Loon put in like a new lift, and it was just going to be based on existing trail systems. But yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that there may be some.
It is a bummer.
Yeah,
yeah. It's tapping into just some really remote, beautiful stuff, which is a bummer.
Yeah. It's too bad.
And I guess something similar is happening up in Maine at Saddleback too. So there is some encroachment going on, in conjunction with the Forest Service and these localities. So just keep an ear open and an eye open. Everybody has a voice,
Interesting. Well,
always got to watch that stuff.
You got to wonder whether or not the expansion of these ski resorts is going to work out for them, given the way that the winters have gone.
Yeah, that's true too. Absolutely. I mean, most of the places right now are blowing snow. I mean, it's been cold enough for blowing, but who knows?
Who knows? All right. Well, moving on. Next thing here, a little politics in New Hampshire. There's a bill proposal to establish May 3rd as Old Man on the Mountain Day.
Pretty neat. I think it was, 2 decades ago when the Old Man collapsed?
20 years ago.
Yeah. So I think it's this May would be the 20th anniversary.
Yeah. I mean, this may not be popular, but from my perspective, like I remember like the Old Man on the Mountain was like such a big deal. And I remember as a kid going there and pretending like I could see it, but I couldn't, like, I didn't know what the hell anyone was talking about. They were like, oh, look at it. And I remember being a kid being like, I don't see anything, but I'm just going to pretend like I see it so that my parents don't get sad.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, good memories.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, it's been gone 20 years now. It's sort of like get over it, but I know people love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised there hasn't been a Memorial Day for it already. But
hey, it seems like if they can get both sides of the political aisle to agree to something, that's sort of a miracle in itself. So maybe that's a good sign. Just prove it.
Yeah.
All right, Stomp. So next you wanted to talk about an article that was in the Boston Globe about sort of death in the mountain. Oh, no, this wasn't the Boston Globe. This is the union leader.
Yeah.
And this was sort of an interview with Ty Gagney, who's been on our show before. So do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, just very briefly, there's been just so much talk following the recent deaths of hikers in and around the region, and it's drawn huge public attention and media attention, and this is a great article that Ty put together with the union leader, and it touches upon some of these issues, and I just want to mention that we will be having Ty in, I believe, next week, if I remember correctly, or the week after, I can't remember. But we will be talking about risk management and all kinds of sort of spur issues that sort of boiled up to the surface during, Emily and this and that, whether it be social media, the media in general, Facebook behavior, all kinds of stuff. So it should be interesting. And of course, mental health as well for all the search and rescue folks, which have been seeing quite a lot of activity lately. So it should be a really good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. And so is Ty. I miss Ty. He's a great guy. Should be nice to have him back on.
Yeah, and I want to coordinate Stomp. I have to hike Tecumseh for my winter 4,000 footer list. That's pretty. I want to close out the Sandwich Range, so I'll probably try to get in person for that one if I can get up to your place next week.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be great.
So we'll work it out. And then moving on, Stomp, you've got another, and also we're going to talk a little bit more about, like, we got a lot of search and rescue news. So there was another death on Franconia Ridge. It's been rough. So we'll talk about that later on in the show. But moving on, Stomp, you have an article here about a crappy situation that happened in Colorado. Do you want to talk about that?
I couldn't resist. There's a crappy situation in Colorado's backcountry. Too many pooping hikers. So there's basically outdoor recreational groups that are hoping to curb the overflow, and they're handing out poop disposal kits that will cut down on the problem piling up in Colorado's public lands. Isn't that amazing? So this is out in like the Crested Butte area. They have this PACT light, which is this easy to use tool for disposing human waste in the backcountry. It's got a small shovel, biodegradable sheets of toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and this and that. And they're hoping that this will take care of some of the poop on the trails. It's such a shame that people just don't take care of themselves after going on the trails. It's not very difficult. When nature calls,
Yeah,
I hear you.
Not have everything you need. But so this is a kit. So for the listeners, we'll link this in the show notes. But this is a kit. There's it's like a shovel looking thing, but it's not like. It's sort of like a circular tube with an opening on the. It's almost like you cut a tube diagonal, and then it looks like you can dig from there. And then there's like this weird little pill thing, and then these other little smaller pills. Like I don't even know what any of this stuff is. Like how are you supposed to clean up stuff? Explain this to me.
Well, apparently there's tissue paper tucked in there as well, so you can store your toilet paper in there, but you can also dig a 6-inch deep hole for the feces. And I mean, it's actually a pretty good idea. It's pretty compact. I could imagine packing it in my pack.
Yeah. I mean,
and is it for sale? Associates do.
I have no idea. I mean, look, I don't know how much detail we want to get into here, but if nature calls on the trail, like trust me, this happens to me frequently because I have a system where I'm like, I'm loading up on coffee before I go on my hike, and inevitably you get a mile in and nature will call. But there's these like metal, I'll link them in the show notes. There's like a little metal shovel that you can use, and you just dig that up, and then. I don't know personally, but like I would presume that you would want to aim for the hole and then cover it up with dirt and leaves and then move on to your hike. Obviously you go way off trail so no one can see you, but it's just, I don't know why it seems like people overthink this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you ever have situations on trail, Stomp?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I mean, I take the effort to dispose of it properly. I mean, it's not rocket science. You just dig a hole and bury it after. I don't know. It's just so nasty these days. There's so many people on trail that just don't know any better, and they just leave their stuff everywhere. It is getting gross. It's even out around here.
We just had a big blow up in the town. We have the town Facebook page, and this guy is so funny. Like there's like. 3 or 4 perpetual topics that always come up. First of all, it was like there's a helicopter. What's going on? Secondly, there is, pedestrians in the crosswalk and speeding cars. Like that's always like the big drama. And then the other one is the dog poop. It's either like people aren't bagging their dog poop, or they're bagging their dog poop, but they're leaving it in the in the woods and not picking it up. But this is a new one. Like this guy was freaking out because one of his neighbors like bagged the dog poop, but it was trash day, so they had the trash barrels out at the end of the driveway. They had already picked the trash up, but this guy hadn't pulled his trash barrel in yet. So the neighbor had the dog poop in a bag, and he decided to put the dog poop in the guy's trash barrel. And the guy apparently saw this happen. I don't know why he wouldn't have confronted his neighbor and just said, I don't want your dog poop in the bottom of my trash barrel. Personally, I don't care. It's a trash barrel. I don't care what's in there. But he decided to go on this big rant on the Facebook page saying how rude it was. And it's like half the town is complaining that it's rude and the other half is like, get over it. So, I don't know. It's a lot of drama with poop.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Anyway, well, let's get back to hiking topic here, Stomp. So you got one other thing here. There are rangers in the Adirondacks that are fining people for not using traction properly. So can you explain this to me and explain this to the listeners? What goes on in the Adirondacks that people are getting fined for hiking?
It's very interesting. This was December 20th, and it was through It's a Catskills podcast. And this one person, you can't see their name, it was blacked out, but they wrote this little brief thing. It said, obviously, we all know snowshoes beyond 8 inches. Well, I hiked Cascade today, and the rangers were waiting at the trailhead on my descent. They were giving out $250 tickets for anyone who was not wearing snowshoes. Just another incentive to be prepared. I could not find confirmation on whether or not this was actually happening or not, but certainly a punitive measure would bolster compliance, I think.
Wow.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, I got to get Stash on the show for an episode. It's the Inside the Lines Catskill podcast. So this is where this came from, and we know the host there. So apparently in the Adirondacks they have a rule where if there's more than 8 inches of snow on the ground, that you have to wear snowshoes. You can't wear spikes even if the trail is like packed down and stuff. So it's kind of foreign to us in the White Mountains, but obviously, I don't think now they can enforce that because all the snow is gone. Yeah,
true. Yeah. The question for me with all these things, how do you enforce these things, And it sounds like this person was descending. So were they just coming out of the trail into the parking lot?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is there 8 inches of snow in the parking lot? It just seems somewhat arbitrary.
Yeah, it just seems like a very slippery slope. I guess you could do it when it's... it's been a lot of snow and whatnot, but it would be useless around here at this point right now.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, you couldn't.
Do you have like a personal rule of thumb when you're out hiking, Stomp, about like when you'll wear snowshoes versus spikes?
It's a matter of depth, historical depth. Like you said, right now, you're not going to need them anywhere pretty much at this point. But if there was a substantial layering up above tree line, for instance, and I'd pack them. But it's, I think we try to tell people to bring everything just so that you can swap out if you need to. But no hard, fast rule, that's for sure.
Yeah, I generally will, if you're sinking at all snowshoes, if the trail is packed down really well, and there's no chance of you doing any sort of post-holing, then I typically will have a bias towards just wearing spikes. Mm-hmm. The tricky part is that when you do commit to spikes, and even if the trail is packed down, like every once in a while, like you might fall in and do a post-hole, and then at a certain point, if you're doing one every 100 feet or every couple 100 feet, it's kind of like, am I going to really stop and switch over to snowshoes? So it is a tricky thing, but essentially, like, it has to be really well packed down before I'll just commit to spikes. But the conditions at this point are so bad; there's such bare trails, really, that really there's no use for snowshoes where I was going. I'll talk about where I hiked recently, but anyway, that's interesting. So don't forget your snowshoes in the Adirondacks. Moving on, Stomp, there's a new Instagram site which is called White Mountain Mishaps, which I feel like the people that started this group should be paying us for the idea.
True. Yeah, they asked for a plug, and I shared it up on the Instagram story, and I'm not sure who's behind it, but they were appreciative, and some of the posts are pretty funny. Good stuff. So it's just spreading the wealth, spreading the information out there.
Yeah, so it is at White Mountain Mishaps with no spaces. And it looks like they post like one or two stories a week or something. So they're soliciting stories. So if you've done something really dumb or you've gotten yourself into a predicament, then I think you can send in like a photo and then a story, and they'll post it on their Instagram. Okay, and then
we get a lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're like 40 minutes in already. So I'm looking at this next spread here. This is the section that I call the Quest for Utopia section, but let's just skim through it quick because this is just too much. With the storm that we had up here, the bomb cyclone, I guess there were some reports of the EV cars having more issues. And I fell down a deep rabbit hole and ended up watching this guy named Siddharth Kata, who wrote a book about the cobalt mining operations that are digging up the cobalt for the cars. And it's a hell of a watch, man. There's some really interesting stuff going on. Highly recommended. And then I saw this whole thing with the Chat GPT. Two issues. I don't know if you saw this, but this is actually really interesting. So 2 issues. It data mines essentially, so it doesn't know the difference if it's actually looking at fiction or somebody's fictional work or whatever. So it may actually give you information that could be inaccurate or a lie even. And then the second issue is that I guess there are cases now popping up where whoever's behind the algorithms are starting to tweak the algorithms to meet, certain narratives and stuff. So it's sort of the same old nonsense that some of these other companies are doing, which is sort of discouraging to me. I guess it goes against the whole idea that ChatGPT is this autonomous beast that's sentient and doing its own thing. I guess it is a couple errors that they're still trying to work out.
Yeah, and I think I've been using it a fair amount. The way the use case that I've found most, and what we're talking about is Chat GPT, and I'll link this in the show notes. It's an AI tool. You can essentially just use it to say like, okay, write an email about some topic, or write me an essay about some topic, or find a recipe for whatever. You can use it for a million different things, and it'll actually output results. I typically will use it for writing stuff when it comes to work or an email or whatever, and I'll use it as a starting point to say like, okay, this is like the basic outline of what I want to communicate, and then I just sort of tweak it, edit it, and make it my own. So I think that's the best use case that I've found for it, but I think that it's going to continue to grow. But you're right. I mean, it can be controlled like everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then I fell into this thing. Everybody's probably heard of this one now, but Roomba was taking pictures of people on toilets and just in awful situations at their home. Did you hear about this?
No, but I've seen those Roombas before, so I get it.
Jesus, like they're spying on you through your Roomba. Oh man! And of course, all this is giving rise to this new movement, the Luddites. The Luddites are back. I mean, the rise of the Luddites. It's a younger generation is just saying no to all this technology and computerization and whatnot. So it's pretty interesting. It's like the counterculture, I suppose, to all the AI advancement and stuff.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how big of a movement that can become.
True.
I can't imagine any of my kids like putting their phones down, but it'd be great to see it, see it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Oh man, we're almost at the show summary. Well, pop culture talk. I mean, Avatar's out there now. There was one thing that was really interesting. James Cameron was doing his big thing, but there's apparently a new study out there that proves that Jack Dawson of Titanic would have died no matter what during that scene at the end where Jack and what was her name? Rose. Yes. Thank you. When she was laying on that wooden plank, there was apparently no way that Jack would have survived. They could not have sat up on top of it or this and that. And Cameron's pretty adamant about it. It's like, we tried everything and there's no outcome that would have saved Jack. Poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, I got a big beef with Rose, and I've seen like there's a comedian that does a bit on this, but like Rose, not only did she not save Jack when she could have shared a little bit more of her space, but this woman went home with a diamond that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, got married to some guy. Presumably this guy went to work every day to earn money to give her a good life. Meanwhile, she's sitting on this diamond that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and then she gets old, goes on some trip, throws it in the ocean. Like that poor guy that married her, like he killed himself to give her a great life, and she was sitting on all this money the whole time.
Yep.
I got a big problem with Rose. Anyway, so Stomp, I got a couple of shows I watched on Netflix. I watched 1899. It's okay, but you got to pay attention to it. It's one of those like ones you got to Google everything because there's all kinds of hints. There's a show called The Letter to the King, which is based on a Danish fantasy story from the 1960s. It was okay. And now right now I'm watching. There's a Witcher prequel, which I like so far. So I figured.
Yeah, I actually started watching that too. The Witcher one, pretty interesting.
Yeah, I like that one.
Not bad.
I like that one. But the other ones, I'm just sort of middle of the road on. But anyway, coffee donations. Any advertisers, Stomp? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we have Naomi and Bruce donated 5 coffees. Thank you. Catherine EC donated 5, and she just said, "I love your podcast." Jeff, Full Strength Coffee Thanos, donated 5, and he sent us Merry Christmas wishes. And then Katana donated 5 coffees as well. Thank you very much for those donations. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And any advertisers? Did you do any advertisers?
Yeah, they're coming up.
Okay, very good. So welcome to episode 87 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week, we kick off this episode with a discussion on some recent hikes in the White Mountains, along with a short history lesson about the trail systems in the Wonalancet Outdoor Club area. Later in the show, we have a large backlog of search and rescue news to cover, including a recent fatality on Franconia Ridge. I'll cover that story along with a number of other incidents, and we'll look to get Stomp's perspective on what's going on in the world of search and rescue. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started. Yeah. And this drink section is just going out to our supporter at Rek-lis Brewing, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun. Just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4,000 footers, and less than 10 minutes from the 5 corners. And we'll see you there after that Pierce hike.
Yeah, January 14th, we're going to be there. So.
Yeah.
Very
Absolutely.
Good. I may buy like a T-shirt on our merchandise site with your picture on it, Stomp.
You got to get the free Daphne. I mean, that's a popular one.
Yes, that's a good one too. All right, what are you drinking, Stomp? Anything good?
Just a little bit of kombucha, lemon and ginger. Just still trying to recover. This stuff has been really good, just for recovery. I'm definitely in the kombucha kick at the moment.
Yeah, I love the ginger.
You get anything?
I love the ginger.
Oh,
I'm actually
amazing.
Yeah, I've been eating too much Chinese food and drinking a few too many beers, so I've still been sick. So I'm trying to be healthy. Made a Rachel from Friends salad last night for my wife, and I'm just drinking water right now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did open up Baby Monster, by the way. So it was last Friday, the 30th of December, and it was really pretty surprising. It tasted pretty good. A little bit of like a hoppy aftertaste, but it was sort of hard to put a label on it. I mean, it was given to us as an American pale ale, but I honestly couldn't really put it in that category. It tastes a little different, but came out pretty good. So,
yeah. Well, Baby Monster, for the listeners who may not have caught that show or don't remember, Stomp and Mrs. Stomp got like a homemade brewing kit. So they have this like big bottle. It's like almost like a water jug type thing, and they made this beer and apparently drank it, and it doesn't taste like it was supposed to, but it tasted interesting.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that.
I love the name Baby Monster Brewing.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. I mean, it's more or less a nod to Daphne, who's just nuts.
All right. So, Stomp, any recent hikes for you?
No, I'm going nuts. I got to get out there.
So nothing since the time we had our last show. We recorded our last show on or around like the second week of December, and you haven't gone on a hike since. It's been like 3-4 weeks.
Correct. Yes, I was doing some running, but no hiking. And I have to get ready for a winter shakedown coming up soon, so I better get moving.
Yeah.
And then being sick didn't help. It's been like 2 weeks. So it's been a weird time.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's weird. Like, I tested for COVID. I didn't have COVID. I don't know if I had this RSV thing or just a cold or the flu or whatever, but it was just like sinus congestion that came and then went. Then I had the cough. Then the sinus congestion came back. Then I had an even worse cough, like just persistent at night. So if you had something similar, I get it. It takes a while to recover.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on the positive note, I got through the whole Sopranos six or 6.5 seasons.
Jesus. Wow.
Talk about a binge. You're like, woo, let's go.
You need to get out hiking. I can't carry all the weight here, but I've been out.
Yeah.
So
I had plans, but they were foiled.
Yeah. Well, I had plans too. Man, I think after I recorded the last show, before I headed down to Florida, I had plans to go to Grey Knob and do a sleepover on Mount Adams, and that bomb cyclone snowstorm came through. When did we end up getting 2 feet of snow?
No, it was it depends on the area. You know, the North Country got a good amount. We got barely anything here in Thornton. It was a mishmash.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
So
total mishmash.
I'm going to say, like, when I got to Appalachia parking lot, it was 2 feet of snow. Easy. But
right. They were in the band.
The plan was my friend has my friend Jonathan, who I winter hike with. He taught me everything I know about winter hiking. He's got a place up in Conway, so I drove up on Saturday morning. It was still snowing, but I was like, let me pick him up, and then we'll go to Appalachia, and then by that time it'll be plowed in, or we can just shovel our way in and we'll figure it out. Which was a dumb plan. Turned out to be a dumb plan. So it was still snowing when I left my house, like Saturday morning at like 4 a.m, because I was like, I want to get there pick him up at 7, get to Appalachia by 8, and we'll get up to Grey Knob. So I get up to 16, but I get past Green Mountain on Ossipee, and there's a tree across the road. So I had to turn around,
bummer,
go the back roads up into Madison. I get on 153 in Madison. I go past King Pine ski mountain, and there's another tree down. There's a cop there. He turns me around. I had to cut over to 113 to get back to Route 16. So it was like craziness just driving up to get to Conway. So I picked Jonathan up, and we're like, let's head over. So we stopped at Pinkham Notch for a second to go to the bathroom, and he needed water, so we filled up with water. We headed down to the Appalachia parking lot, and I start going past like 19 Mile, and I go past the Great Gulf, and I go past the Imp, and there's nothing's plowed, and it's still snowing. And I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. Like, maybe the parking lot's not going to be cleared. Then I was like, maybe we can just park on the road if we need to. And then I thought, like, well, if I park on the road, that's not going to be good. I don't think the plows are going to be too happy about that. So sure enough, we get through Gorham. We get to the parking lot, and it hadn't been touched. There's not a car in the parking lot. Nobody had plowed. It was still snowing out a little bit, but I was just shocked that nobody had plowed. Then I was like, well, maybe I'll call. I have the ride. I have Mara, who is one of the local shuttle drivers. I was like, maybe I can go up to Pinkham, have her meet us there, and then drive us back down and drop us off at the parking lot at Appalachia. But then by the time we got that all done, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning or 9:30 in the morning. So we just decided, forget it. We just went up to Pinkham Notch, and then we were like, let's just do a day hike, and we'll go break trail somewhere. So we ended up just breaking Boot Spur out. So me and Jonathan went up, and we broke trail to Boot Spur. I decided I wanted to get home that night, so it just turned into a day hike. And we broke Boot Spur out to about 3,600, 3,800 feet, and then ran out of time. We were just like, let's just get back before it gets dark out. So it was fun, but it definitely wasn't the trip I had planned.
Right.
Yeah.
Boot Spur from where? Where'd you start?
Pinkham Notch. So we went up Tuckerman.
Oh, I got it.
We went up Tuckerman, and there was a ton of people like getting the first run in down the Sherburne Trail and all that. So we just broke off went across the ski trail, and then we were like, let's see if anybody's gone up Boot Spur, and maybe we can get to the sun. We can get up to the top. Nobody had, and we were like, let's just see how far we can go. And I think it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and we were like, let's just call it a day. You know, we got some outdoor time. It was tricky though. It took us a while to get up to the ladder. There's a big ladder you got to climb, and it was slow going, breaking trail like that.
Wow. Yeah, those videos you posted were pretty cool. Looked like a workout.
It was a workout. But we paid our dues to the mountains to break the trails.
No kidding. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So it was quite an adventure. It was fun. I learned a lot, but I guess I'd be interested to get people's perspective if anybody has an opinion about like how to manage that situation. Like I feel like maybe I could have just parked on Route 2 and parked kind of near the entrance to the parking lot, and maybe it would have been fine because that section was plowed, but I don't know what the rules are there. Anyway, but then I also got in. So then after that, I went to Florida. Came back and in my winter 4,000 footer list completion mode. So I started my first winter hike of the season. I went up and did Whiteface Passaconway as a loop. So I recently hiked Whiteface. Nice. Yeah, and I've been all over Ferncroft, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But I've been all over that area in the past couple of months. So I just figured like I'll just put together my winter 4,000 footers. So Whiteface and Passaconway are done.
So did you go clockwise or up Dicey's?
I went clockwise, so I took Blueberry Ledge Cutoff because I took Blueberry Ledge a couple of weeks ago when I did Whiteface.
I've never done that. I've been meaning to. It's supposed to be nice.
Yeah, the cutoff is like it's more like I mean you get to the open ledge, basically the same spot as. You get to the first open ledge basically through that way as well. Maybe you miss one ledge, I don't know. But it's more like just going through open forest, and then you do a quick climb up to the trail junction. And then I went up Blueberry the rest of the way. I was bare boot until that first ledge, the first really tricky climb. And I couldn't put spikes on anyway because it was bare rock. So I made it up that. Then made it up to the sort of what people always assume is kind of the Whiteface summit, that open section. And then once I got to the true summit, that's when it started post-holing, and I was wearing micro spikes, and it was just choppy ice. But I made it through that loop, had a couple of views. The ceiling dropped down a little bit, so the views weren't that great. And then ran into one lady on my way up to Passaconway, and then 3 guys came and passed me with a dog. They were like trail runner people, so they flew past me. But that was it. Those are the only people I saw in Passaconway.
Interesting.
Yep. You
get that glare ice on Passaconway at spots?
Not so much. I took Dicey's Mill Trail all the way to the summit, so it's a little bit of a switchback. It was melted out, so it was like a moving stream, parts of it. But in the past, I've gone up Passaconway. I've gone from the other direction, which I think is the Walden Trail, and that's much more of a sort of rock climb to the summit. This was a lot easier to get up.
Yeah.
But it was good. And then I came down Dicey's Mill Trail, and I think I was wearing micro spikes until about 2,200 feet. Then I took them off. And it was just mud and bare boot the rest of the way. It felt like
was that water crossing?
It was a little sketchy. I had to there's a fallen tree, and then somebody had laid a second tree on it, so I had to take that over. There wasn't any rock hopping because it was running pretty hot. So that was a little disconcerting to go over that, but the tree was not slick. It looked slick when I was looking at it. I was like, this may be slippery, but it wasn't bad at all. I was able to just get good traction on it.
That's good. Yeah, that's the one thing about Dicey's Mill Trail, that one crossing can be generally running pretty well.
Oh, it was running hot. And I almost was like, what I was thinking, I was like, maybe I'll put my spikes back on so that I can get more bite into the tree as I go across it. But
yeah.
I was like, well, I could also like trip myself up or get stuck, like, the spikes getting stuck into the tree. So I just bare booted it, went slow. There's another tree that's like leaning against it, so I could, and that was firm. So I had 1 foot on the small tree and 1 on the big tree, and then I got halfway across, and I was like, I think I have my balance, and I just went American Ninja Warrior across it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Nice work.
So, but that's it. So Whiteface, Passaconway are done. That means I have 16 peaks left.
Okay, I was going to ask. Not too bad.
Not bad. Yeah, I think I got about 10 hikes left. So I've got some one-offs. I've got to do Tecumseh. I've got to do Mount Tom. I need to do Cabot because I thought I did Cabot in the winter, but that was actually a November hike that me and you did when it was snowing.
Right.
I got to do Cannon. I'll probably finish on Cannon again, and then I got to do Owl's Head and Mariah. So I've got 6 one-offs that I need to do.
What about the Twins, Galehead, Bonds, and Zealand?
Yep. Yeah, I got to do those. I think I'm
going to do those at 1.
I was looking at the mileage for Galehead and the Twins. If you went out and you did Galehead and then south and north, that's about 15 miles total out. That's an out and back.
Yeah.
So
Zealand
that's a long
and Bonds. That's a long day too.
Zealand and Bonds is a long day. I don't have Hale on there too. I got to do Hale, but some combination of like the Twins, Galehead, Bonds, Zealand, Hale. I've got to figure out like how I'm going to do those. I might do an overnight, but we'll see how it goes.
Pretty cool.
But that's what I got. That's what I got going for the next 3 months.
All right. Well, let me know when you're at Tecumseh. I'll join you for that. It's my new love.
Yes, I can do that.
Yes.
All right, Stomps. So no hiking for you. Notable listeners of the week. Notable hikers.
Oh boy, our listeners, they've been out there crushing it. So we have Shandy. Well, first of all, you can tag SLASR on your adventure to be considered for SLASR's Hike of the Week, which is generally picked by Mike and a guest. No guarantees you'll be plugged. We haven't been here for a while, so we have a bit of a list, so it'll be fun to go through this. It's generally not this long, but Shandy did Smarts after the storm and hit Osceola. Doki Pen and Trail Slipper broke trail all the way out to Owls after the big storm, and they say it was a sufferfest. And apparently this is can you imagine? So second round and single year 48 and 160 for the grid. So they are crushing it. Nick hikes and plays guitar. Did Mount Pemmy, Artist Bluff, Echo Lake after Cube Plan A was foiled. Sorry about that, Nick. It happens to the best of us. A Folsom hit a Wintry Liberty. Those pictures are pretty cool. Steve Summits finished 48 on Moose. And apparently this is Full Strength Coffee's son-in-law, so a little bit of family action there. Full Strength himself did a 12-mile High Cannon and South Kinsman. Sharpened the sword back again. Finished out 2022 with Cube. Cube's popular, huh? I haven't been out there.
Cube's a great hike.
Is it really nice?
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll have to check it out. Steve Summit's back at it again. So, this is actually really interesting. Second Katahdin attempt, ran into adversity. Let me get through these, and I if you can give me a minute, I want to read you a couple things out of this adventure that this kid was on.
Sure.
Brandon 624 did the Welch Sticky Loop per Stomp suggestion, went counterclockwise. I love this. I'm like, wait a minute, when did I suggest that? And I think I in our conversation, I don't think I told him to go there, but he may have been referring to some of my own preferences, but I thought that was sort of funny. Like, if you want to get yelled at, go counterclockwise. And then there's Maya Devaya. Sorry if I'm butchering that. So they did the northeast corner of Rhode Island, Buck Hill Yellow Dot Trail, Rhode Island, Connecticut Border Trail, Tri-State Trail, and Mid-State Trail for a whopping 750 feet elevation. Nick hikes and plays guitar, did Welch Sticky again, offering good traction tips. Definitely confirmed that it was glare ice up there at the time. And then finally, Full Strength is back again doing a dad-daughter hike. But let me just read a couple of these things here about Steve Summit. So he went back to Baxter for a second time since 2014. Back in 2014, he slipped on a rock before hitting Chimney Pond and turned back. This time around, they drove up to Millinocket and met up with a group of 4. And they were planning on spending the night at Abel Campground and summiting the following day. They froze their asses off in 0-degree temperatures that night in the lean-to, struggled to get going once the sun came up. The 5 of them took turns breaking trail up the tree line, and once they hit the exposed portion of A-Ball Slide, it was on. The half-mile of trail took us about an hour and a half due to the number of factors. Poor visibility, sub-zero temps, extreme technicality with crampons, ice axes, and every single rock was covered with ice from the rain a few days prior. So long story short, they end up reaching the top of the ridge just 0.9 miles away from the Baxter Peak summit, but it was already 2 p.m., and that was their turnaround time, apparently. They say that they could have pushed further, but they were nervous about losing the trail above tree line or having to descend all that technical terrain in low light. So long story short, they bailed, and they're happy they made it as far as they did, and he was very impressed with the group that they were with, and didn't give turning around a second thought. And I think that's the moral of this story. It's like, the mountains will be there another day. So good lessons there.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. I haven't done the Lion's Head Winter Trail, but I would imagine that it's probably a sort of a similar type of hike. Like it's a lot of work going up A-Ball in the summer or the fall. So I can imagine that it's probably craziness in the winter breaking it out like that with crampons and ice axe.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. No, thanks. But
we got to give him the hiker of the week.
Yeah, for sure. That's making good decisions and trying to tackle a monster. It's pretty notable for sure.
Although breaking trail out to Owl's Head, that gets an honorable mention.
Ow, absolutely. Yeah. Oh boy. So you have a little history segment coming up, right?
I do. So I've sort of noticed, like I have this tendency to sort of like obsess on a particular area in the Whites, and I think over the summer I spent a ton of time in Evans Notch and tried to get as many trails in that area as I could. And for whatever reason, I've just been in this Wonalancet, Whiteface, Passaconway, Hibbard, Paugus, like this, basically the Ferncroft parking area, which is for me, and especially like if you live in the North Shore of Massachusetts and you're looking to do like the 52 with the views of the 4,000 footers and you're pressed for time, or you just prefer to get your hike started early and get home a little bit early, or even if you want to start late, you've got a shorter ride to get over to Ferncroft, because you basically just have to get to Tamworth, take a left on Depot Road, and then drive maybe 5 or 6 miles down, and you get to that that parking lot. And I also think Ferncroft, the drive in there is one of the most picturesque views, New England views, that you're going to see. So I really love the area, and it's sort of a tale of two cities when it comes to sort of the crowds. Like anybody that's hiking Whiteface Passaconway in the summer, you're always going to be dealing with a ton of people. If you pull into Ferncroft and you want to avoid the crowds, just sort of make your way over to the right, and you can head up like to the Walden Trail or any of those trails that take you to Hibbard or Paugus. Any of those are very sort of out to Square Ledge. They're very quiet and not a lot of crowds. So I really love the area, but I wanted to just pull up a little bit of history on the Wonalancet Outdoor Club. So I'll include this in the show notes, but the cool thing about this club is that they do a newsletter at least once a year, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. They've been doing these newsletters since the 70s, Stomp. So they have newsletters that you can go back into, and you can pick up a ton of historical tidbits about some of the the trail systems there, some of the people that the trails are named after, and the whole history of the Wonalancet Outdoor Club, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
So the first person I wanted to talk about as a historical figure is somebody by the name of Tom Wiggins. So Tom Wiggins has a trail. So if you go up Dicey's Mill, or you can also go to the Blueberry Ledge Cutoff Trail. You'll see a sign that will take you to the Tom Wiggins Trail. And the interesting thing about this particular trail is that it's unique in that, as far as I know, it is the only trail sign and trail that specifically discourages people from using it. So the trail sign says not recommended due to steep and unstable ground.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I think it's the only, like I said, trail that I know of that specifically says don't use this trail. My own personal history with this trail is the first time I hiked Whiteface, I went up this trail because I made the classic mistake of looking at the mileage and not looking at the elevation lines on the map. And I took Caroline up there, and I was like, well, let's go this route because the mileage is much shorter, but I didn't realize that the elevation gain was so significant. But we crushed it. We had no problem going up it. So it is basically, the trail takes you from the bottom of what's called the Bowl Research Area. So within this area, there's like a research forest that is used to study forestry and forest growth in the White Mountains. And Dicey's Mills Trail basically takes you up the center of that bowl, and then off of Dicey's Mill, there's the Tom Wiggins Trail that goes up to the Blueberry Ledge section of Whiteface, and it basically travels up through this sort of somewhat open forest. It's a lot of loose rock and scree stomp, I would say. It's very heavy with trees, but it's also like a sort of a scree field a bit, so it does get a little bit loose, but a lot of trees to grab on. And me and Caroline made our way up, and I remember thinking, like, for it to be listed as not recommended, like, I didn't think it was that hard. So the trail makes it up. The history of this trail is basically that it was originally the only trail that could get you to it was originally the only trail that could get you up to Whiteface. So originally, like from the junction where Tom Wiggins hits Blueberry Ledge, that top section that's now called Blueberry Ledge used to be called the Tom Wiggins Trail. Eventually, the trail was just deemed too steep and dangerous for people to use. So over time, when they created the Blueberry Ledge Trail, eventually, because it's more of a, like, it stays along the ridge the entire time, they decided to change the name of Upper Blueberry Ledge from Tom Wiggins Trail to Blueberry Ridge. All right, so in the 1890s, there was a very robust economy that was blooming all over Wonalancet. So there's a bunch of city folks that wanted to come up and experience the mountains. The first trail was the Dicey Mill Trail, which was cut in 1891, and that took you up to Passaconway. Obviously, Mount Whiteface was looking right next to it and was very inviting. At this point right now, the only way to get to Whiteface was from Intervale. So you're talking about like a 16-mile round-trip hike. And the only way up that mountain was at, McGrillis's, which was way over towards the Intervale section. So a local innkeeper by the name of Thomas S. Wiggins was leading hiking parties in this particular area, and he discovered a new route which he cut basically himself. So it basically cut the distance that you would take you to get to Whiteface by about half. So Wiggins Trail was the first and only trail up Whiteface for a while. So the hikers from Wonalancet would use this new shorter trail, but a lot of them complained that it was too steep, and they started calling it the Firescape. So by 1899, they had built the alternative Blueberry Ledge Trail, which immediately became much more preferable. But a lot of the sort of heavy-duty mountaineers did still focus on use the Tom Wiggins Trail. So it's a challenging hike. It's got a lot of ladder-like spots, and it's got proximity to this virgin forest of the bowl. So, it's singled out as the sort of the club singled it out as not recommended. It's sort of lost to memory on why they put the not recommended on the trail sign. So it says not recommended, steep and loose. But apparently in the 1908 Wonalancet Outdoor Club guide, it recommended that hikers should descend the Wiggin, but the path is too steep to climb. At a certain point, the AMC guides reversed it and said that you can climb it, but do not ever come down it. So, it runs down the fall line of a slope, so it's at risk for erosion. The treadway is really eroded, but it's 120 years old, doesn't get a lot of traffic, so nobody's too worried about it. But anyway, that's the Tom Wiggins Trail, if you're ever interested in going on an adventure.
Oh, well, any trail that says don't climb me, I mean, gotta go now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. The other trail that I thought was interesting, Stomp, is when you get up to the summit of Whiteface and you head towards Passaconway, you'll go past the junction of the Kate Sleeper Trail, which is a connecting trail from the Wonalancet Trail system that takes you into the Waterville Valley trail systems of the Tri-Pyramids.
Yeah, I've done it a handful of times. It's a beautiful, beautiful adventure.
Yeah. So I was doing a little bit of digging about Kate Sleeper. So the trail is named after a woman by the name of Kate Sleeper, who was born in 1862. She died in 1949, and she was the founder of, I found this interesting, so she was the founder of, they called it Birch Intervale originally, but it was renamed to Wonalancet. So she was visiting Tamworth at the time in like the 1890s, and she decided to open an inn. She was looking around. She eventually bought a 600-acre farm, which was the property of an early settler. The house was built in 1814, and Kate renamed it to the Wonalancet Farm. She was, pretty charming and energetic, and she needed help running the farm, so she was able to get a young friend and some relatives, a gentleman by the name of Arthur Walden, to help her with the farm portion. And eventually they ended up getting married. So there is another trail out there called the Walden Trail. It's unclear whether or not that's named after Kate Sleeper or her husband, but the Walden Trail takes you up to Passaconway from like the Square Ledge area back there as well. But she ended up getting married in 1902, and they ended up living together for a good period of time. She's described as small, blonde, blue-eyed, high-pitched voice, attractive, very social. She was involved in the first service held at the Wonalancet Chapel, and had a number of guests from Boston up at the inn, and they would oftentimes hold sermons at the chapel. So she was involved in forming the Wonalancet Outdoor Club in the summer of 1891, and she worked with the AMC in order to get the club kicked off, and they often would stay at her inn, so the AMC club members would stop off at her inn, and essentially they worked with her to make Wonalancet a much more easy access point to Passaconway. So that was their first goal, was like, let's get so that you can climb Passaconway. Then eventually they opened up Whiteface. There was a pretty good trail system around Chicora at that time already. But once they built the Dicey's Mill Trail, that opened up the access to Passaconway. We talked about Tom Wiggins Trail, and then eventually, there was a number of other trails, the Blueberry Ledges Trail, Lawrence Trail, and then, Kate Sleeper was built to be the principal connecting link between the Wonalancet Outdoor Club trails and the network of trails that are maintained by the Waterville Valley Athletic and Improvement Association. So prior to the Sleeper Trail, there was no direct path between these two. the original trail was blazed by a gentleman by the name of Edward Rich, who cleared and cut this area, and he was a founding member of the Wonalancet Out Door Club and also an early president. He was a respected member of the community and had carried out a lot of negotiations with members of the community, neighboring hiking clubs, and officials responsible for acquiring the land. So this guy was a real player in the early build-out of the Sandwich Range. So he was a lawyer by trade and served as a general solicitor for the Boston and Maine Railroad. So he definitely saw the vision around figuring out how to connect the Sandwich Range across from Wonalancet out to Waterville. So path leaves the top of Mount Whiteface at Camp Shahadi in the northwesterly direction and descends to the source of Downs Brook at an elevation of 3,400 feet, which is the lowest point of the path. And then it goes over the three swells on the ridge that connect the two mountains, striking the south slide of Tri-Pyramid at an elevation of 3,500 feet. So pretty interesting that this gentleman, Edward Rich, built the trail, named it in honor of Kate Sleeper.
It's such a beautiful trail. I remember, I think 2 summers ago, Nobby and I did Whiteface to South Tri, and it was a nice day. But that Downs Brook junction that you mentioned, that's a water source actually, and it's fairly dry for the rest of the trail all the way out to Tripoli Road. But it's just very beautiful and remote. Not super difficult. It's very long and gradual. Those 2 sleepers that you come up and over, not too dramatic, but it's just a really nice remote day. You're just way the hell out there. It's
a the newsletter here talks a little bit about how, especially like going back into those early 1900s, like you're 4 miles from Ferncroft, and then you're like 5 miles from Livermore, right, on that trail, and then you're going 3,500 to 4,000 feet along that ridge. It's very like susceptible to blowdowns, and to get up there and actually maintain and clear those blowdowns. Like, can you imagine like in the early 1900s when they would have big storms? Like, we usually get like these crazy storms every 4 or 5 years that cause huge blowdowns. There was probably years where they would go through and not maintain those trails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those of you doing the 500 highest, the sleepers are on the 500 highest list. So you're going to have to find your way out there at some point to bag them.
Yeah. And I've never actually been on the trail. I've obviously crossed it before, but, I guess there's been like a little bit of a directional change. I think like the original sleeper trail might have like basically come out a little bit lower on the south slide than it does now, but it's been pretty pretty consistent, I guess, the direction. There was some logging out in the early 1900s that sort of redirected the trail over time, but it's definitely a cool area. And like you said, it's like one of those areas where if you want to go and be really remote, Kate Sleeper Trail is a good one.
Yeah, good stuff. It's a popular trail. A lot of people say it's their favorite. I've heard that over and over again. Yeah, it's interesting. And Kate Sleeper, I mean, just to think about, like, she didn't get married, I don't think, until later on. So she was doing this innkeeping and organizing the hiking club or the trail club and getting involved in sort of the religious life and everything to do with this particular area on her own. So it's really interesting that, you don't hear much about her, but she led a fascinating life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so hopefully that was interesting, Stomp.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and again, I highly recommend this area. I mean, from Mount Paugus to Mount Hibbard to Wonalancet to Square Ledge, Passaconway, Whiteface, Kate Sleeper. It's just the trails out here are endless, and it's just an amazing area of the Whites. Love it.
Now, can you connect Chicora all the way over to Waterville through the Sandwich Range?
I think you can Stomp. I know I'd have to look at Gaia, but that would be that'd be
a hell of a day.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a day.
Cats meow.
That may be an adventure for the summer. Maybe you and me can figure out a Chicora to Waterville traverse. There's got to be a Sandwich Range traverse that starts in Chicora, I'm assuming.
Oh, there must be. Yeah. I remember talking about that at some point in the past, but plans sort of went to the wayside. But that would be a nice trip. Yeah, not too overwhelming mileage-wise either.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm looking at it. You know what it is? It's the B. So I think you would have to take the Beeline Trail to Mount Paugus. And then from there, you can cut over to Square Ledge, Passaconway, Whiteface, Sleeper, and then you're on your way.
Dump out. Yeah. How many miles do you think?
I don't know. I'll have to map it out. It probably looks like a good 25 miles or so, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Plans for the future.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. All right, so we want to move on to search and rescue?
Yeah, let's go.
We have a sponsor for this section. This is Vaucluse gear. Back sweat sucks in all types of weather and hikes. Not only is it uncomfortable, sweat is a risk factor, causing your core temperature to fluctuate if it doesn't evaporate off your back. Check out Vaucluse's Cool Dry Backpack Airflow Frame, a backpack accessory that installs in your favorite pack sizes 18 liters to 65 liters and creates an airflow gap between you and your pack. Whether you're in hot or cold temps, even if you have a pack with a curved frame, the Cool Dry frame is a real game changer when it comes to airflow. So visit VaucluseGear.com to order a Cool Dry frame today.
No sweat for you, Stomp.
Yeah, I need it.
All right. So we got a couple of national stories here. Hiker hospitalized after making soup from poisonous forest mushrooms. This guy needs to go hiking with Jimmy Chaga to show him the way.
Oh my goodness. So this is in Israel. I don't know. It's like you really got to know your stuff if you're going to start fiddling around with mushrooms.
Yeah. The men, all of whom are believed to be foreign workers, ate the soup while hiking near Jerusalem in Israel last week. So the men are suspected of having eaten Amanita proxima, which is a plain white-colored fungus usually found in France, Italy, and Spain. It resembles many edible species, but it is extremely poisonous and is known to cause acute kidney failure that may require treatment with temporary dialysis. So two of the hikers traveled to Hadassah Medical Center in Jerusalem on Friday with symptoms of poisoning, and the third presented himself a few hours later feeling weak and nauseous. Third man, who'd been identified as a Chinese national, was progressively worse over the following days, suffered from heart damage, kidney failure, and there's really, that they said is there was nothing left for them to do except connect him to a heart-lung machine in dialysis. Wow. And
that's amazing.
His condition deteriorated pretty quickly. So when in doubt, throw it out when it comes to mushrooms.
Words to live by, apparently.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Very good. So Stomp, this next one here, I'm going to skip the rescuers who fell through the ice, and I'm going to go to 10 people feared missing in Austria avalanche were found alive. So there's a cool video of this, and originally there was an avalanche that happened in the mountainous villages of Lech and Zers in Austria. And originally there was concern that these 10 people got swept away and were gone, but luckily they were able to find these people. Looks like they were ski guests that were taken right before the avalanche occurred. Video showed 10 skiers in the avalanche's path, and they looked to be completely covered, but as workers were resuming the search, they were able to identify all 10 of them and save them all. So pretty nice miracle.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was sent in by Gingerbeard Keen. Thanks, Mike, for the tip.
Awesome. And then there's another one here that says rescuers die attempting to save someone who fell through the ice, but it's whatever the link is, Stomp, that you gave me. Oh, you know what? Now it's working. Perfect. So 2 men went missing under the ice in Wyoming's Keyhole Reservoir on Thursday while attempting to assist a rescue mission. And unfortunately, they've been found deceased. So these 2 guys were helping out, and they ended up falling in themselves. So really terrible story. But somebody had fallen into the ice in Keyhole Reserve while on a ATV vehicle. He was able to make it out of the water alive. But during that time, 3 more locals drove onto the ice and fell through themselves. I guess they were trying to help out. One of the 3 people was found alive and taken to an ambulance, while the remaining 2 were not found. So, unfortunately,
it's terrible.
They were able to recover them, but it's terrible.
There were a couple other local stories about that type of thing. So this time of the year is rough. You know, the ice has got to be thin, I'm assuming at this point. So you got to be so careful out there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Wyoming, like, it's a little bit different, but I still think it's just not worth the risk. So anyway, so moving on to local New England area here, Stomp. We might have a problem with these links, actually.
Mine's working.
Let's pause this for a second. So I'm looking for it looks like it's a Facebook link for Monadnock.
Correct. Yeah.
I got it now. Okay. Lost hiker assisted from the summit of, we'll have to mark this at the 129 section. I just cut this section out like while I was fumbling around.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Cool. All right, so lost hiker assisted from the summit of Mount Monadnock after dark. So this happened on December 17th at 4:10 p.m., half hour of natural light remaining from the summit of Mount Monadnock. A solo hiker contacted New Hampshire Fish and Game via Cheshire County Sheriff's Office in need of assistance. The hiker, 32-year-old from Norman, Oklahoma, advised that the rocky summit was completely cloud covered and he may have strayed off trail above tree line. With the assistance of a conservation officer at the bottom, he was able to provide location information gathered on his phone, which was relayed to 3 state park rangers from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources and a fish and game conservation officer. Those 4 people were able to ascend, and the hasty team of first responders immediately were able to get to his location. He was advised to keep himself sheltered as much as possible and not move so the rescuers could find him. There was some heavy snow, new snow coming in, high winds, freezing temperatures at the summit, so they were able to locate this person approximately 2 hours after the first call. He was uninjured and able to descend with the rescue party to Monadnock State Park headquarters. So well outfitted for winter hiking, but inexperienced with above tree line navigation. Norman, Oklahoma.
Ran out of light.
Yeah, ran out of light. Like here, this is
the whole
not
thing.
Yeah. So this is not Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's for sure. Not in Oklahoma anymore.
You're not in Oklahoma anymore. So, all right. So this next one, Stomp, is this is a sad story. So we referenced this previously. So this happened on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. Overdue hiker was located deceased. This is another situation where we have a tragedy on Franconia Ridge. Heard this story just brutal. So around 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Fish and Game were notified of an overdue hiker. So this was a 28-year-old solo hiker from Salem, New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. He got on trail at 11 a.m. It sounds like he went up Old Bridle up to Lafayette and was coming across to Little Haystack. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what was going on here. It was interesting that a family member in China was tracking the progress of this hiker throughout the day. So the person left at 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. Family member was tracking GPS, so I don't know what they had on. Like I know I've talked about this before. Like I have Life 360 with my kids, so I can see where they are. Could be something like that.
Sure, I would assume so.
Yeah, and at some point around 6:15, the family member reported that the hiker's phone was going dead, and it appeared as though the hiker was off trail south of Mount Lincoln. So the hiker was described by family as inexperienced, and it was unknown what he was carrying for equipment. So with temperatures getting to be 0, a search for the hiker commenced. 2 a.m. on Christmas, a team of conservation officers reached the ridge. Shortly after that, they located what they thought were the tracks of the hiker. These tracks continued off trail and ended up in a drainage that flows between Little Haystack and Mount Lincoln. Around 6:45 a.m., they located the body of the missing hiker about a half mile from Falling Waters Trail in Franconia. So it sounds like whatever he was doing, he was trying to basically cut down the drainage and get to Falling Waters. Didn't make it. I'm presuming hypothermia here, and there wasn't any large-scale sort of search and rescue going on. This was a hasty team of conservation officers that basically went out on Christmas morning to help find this man, and they were able to find him. But young man, 28 years old, gentleman by the name of Tony Lee, Salem, New Hampshire, apparently loved the outdoors. He was inexperienced in winter conditions. And it's just another case of a young person that I think just got over their head. The allure of Franconia Ridge just seems to be, there's something about that ridge that people just feel like it's so accessible, and they feel like they can sort of roll the dice with inexperience to get up there, but it's serious business up there, and it's just sad to see another one of these deaths, Stomp.
Yeah, you can take notes from the secondary article, too, from the Boston Globe, where they interviewed Jim Nealand, Lieutenant Nealand from Fish and Game, who described Lee as inexperienced, a lover of the outdoors who enjoyed skiing and had hiked the White Mountains in the summertime, but was ill-prepared for the below-freezing temps. Quote, he did have some ice traction devices, but as for spare or extra clothing, he really had none at all, Nealand said. He was wearing goggles, but we could not find any kind of light source that would have aided him after dark. Simply finding the trail markers without a light in pitch black is next to impossible. Nealand said he believes Lee was trying to navigate the trails using a cell phone without a compass or paper maps as a backup. When the phone died, Nealand added it probably, quote, led him to go off trail.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a very similar situation and story, same themes that we saw with Emily Sotelo, and it's like, you don't want to be judgmental about these things, but there's just some basic strategies that you need to undertake in the winter, basic, clothing that you need with you. And, if you're not experienced, like just utilize, these meetup groups, try to network, get some friends, try to go with somebody that knows what they're doing. And, if you're listening to this and you're an inexperienced hiker and you think you're going to go out in the winter and you got nobody to go with, like just, send a message to our Instagram or Facebook and we'll try to hook you up. It's not something we want to get too excited about doing, but we will if we need to, but we just don't want to see another one of these tragedies.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is something that we'll talk about when Ty gets here too. Because there is a question in the back of my mind in terms of, are we doing what we can to educate certain generational groups? Every generation learns somewhat differently, and I'm wondering if we're tackling certain generations properly or correctly, or if we're just totally missing the mark. So that's sort of an interesting discussion to have.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Like, is it like, even this format of podcasting, like I feel like anybody that's going to listen to a podcast like this for an hour and a half, 2 hours is typically going to be a hardcore hiker that's driving up to the mountains and they just want to, think about hiking and they're into it. Like, how effective is it? Like, how likely is a young person that, maybe hiking is a passion, but not their primary passion. Are they going to listen to this podcast and learn lessons, or are they going to go on a TikTok video? What's more effective?
Right. And even Facebook, all these hiking groups that, or pages that we're familiar with, younger kids aren't even on Facebook anymore. So there's no value there probably. So how are some of these younger individuals learning, or maybe they're just getting missed? Like in my research, I can't wait to talk about this. It's going to be really interesting. But it seems like the whole hiking buddies thing is probably one of the more effective modes for the younger generations. Just they like being in a peer group setting like that, and different from say you and I. But we'll talk about it because it's very interesting. I even wonder, like, how are they getting the hike safe concepts across to people? Are we doing it the best way that we can? I think it's an important topic.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's a marketing question on how best to do it.
Yeah.
And even in this article, it talks about how, there's more than 100 new warning signs at trailheads around Mount Washington, alerting people to possible changes in weather and conditions near the summit. But even then, they still feel like, there's these reckless behaviors. I mean, you had those two people that were charged over by the Watcher, which is, again, Franconia Ridge area that, law enforcement was upset enough about that situation to basically say, like, look, we really, saw reckless behavior and it's worth a fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, very sad.
Yeah.
And this article does, like, the total number of rescues they talk about, 168 in 2019, 173 in 2020, 183 rescues last year. So those all sort of line up with what my numbers are as far as the media reported. Like, it seems like the basic pattern is that a little over half get media reported, and there's a number of missions that they do that are sort of walkouts or navigating people out through phone calls and things like that don't make the media, but they're still pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. What was your take on the number that they posed there? 21 or 22 deaths per year?
I saw that. So there's a Boston Globe article that talked about how there was 21 hiker-related deaths in New Hampshire last year, and that's in line with past years, which I think that's an error. I think what that is I'm very confident that number's not correct. I think it's closer to 6 to 10 per year is the average when it comes to hiking and climbing. I think what they did was they got the total number of deaths that are tied to all the activities that Fish and Game is involved with.
Could be.
Which I think involve like snowmobiling, ATVs,
right.
fishing, ice accidents, things like that. I think that's what that number is versus the hiking.
Makes
ones.
sense.
So,
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it is interesting. I was curious about where they got those numbers from. All right,
we're going to Mount Moosilauke.
Moosilauke, yeah, that was the one that I hiked actually right before heading out to New Hampshire. So medical emergency on Moosilauke, December 28th. New Hampshire Fish and Game notified of a hiker suffering from medical emergency. So this was a 22-year-old hiker from Arkansas. She was with two friends that had started their planned hike around 1:15. So again, another one of these late starts here. They parked off a ravine road and hiked up to the summit via Gorge Brook Trail. So as the three were getting to the summit, this 22-year-old hiker felt ill. The group was able to begin their descent, but it became clear that she was unable to walk on her own. So the two friends had to stop and reevaluate this 22-year-old hiker's condition frequently while they assisted her down the trail. So good for them for moving forward and trying to get her out. Conservation officers responded to assist down the trailhead. Luckily, they were able to get her most of the way down. So again, the hike started at 1:15. Around 6 o'clock, they got the call, and then the parties were able to get to the trailhead parking lot around 8:15. Sounds like conservation officers were just beginning their hike in when they ran into her.
Mm-hmm.
So she was brought to Spear Memorial Hospital by Linwood Ambulance Service for further evaluation. So they said the group was prepared. They had proper clothing and layers. They all had headlamps and had looked at the weather. So, kudos to them. Who knows what happened? Maybe low blood sugar, maybe something else. But they're going to get this 22-year-old looked at.
Good, yeah. Wishing her the best.
Yep. And then going back to Mount Monadnock, we've got multiple searches. Yeah. So we've got multiple searches conducted in the Monadnock region. So this is on December 30th and December 29th. Fish and Game was called to Pisgah State Park. 2 men had been operating trail bikes on a hiking trail where OHRVs are not permitted. So I'm not exactly sure what these trail bikes are. It sounds like they may be powered vehicles. So one of the riders experienced a mechanical failure on Passaconway Ridge Trail, and I know I'm going to, the pronunciation's probably wrong on this, but near the summit of Pisgah Mountain. Do you know how to say this?
I'm not sure. That's a good guess.
You're hanging me out to dry here. So it's Pisgah Mountain, I'm going to call it. While attempting to fix the mechanical problem, the young man sustained a serious hand injury. They had no lights on their machines, no flashlights, no warm clothes or technical gear to survive the freezing temperatures. So Hinsdale and Winchester Fire and Rescue responded to the scene, and they entered the Kilburn Trail Loop, and they were able to rescue these 2 individuals around 6:15. They got them to an ambulance, and they were on their way by 7:30. So shame on them for riding their vehicles when they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And then the next situation was around the same time, around 7 o'clock, in the town of Dublin. There was a person, it doesn't really give a background on them, female hiker from Gardner, Mass, had been hiking the Pompelli Trail when she lost her way and found herself off the marked trail. This hiker had lost feeling in her feet. She was showing early signs of hypothermia and was unable to navigate after being lost for hours. So this one was a close call. Conservation officers, they had to leave the response that they were dealing with in Pisgah and move over to this search and rescue. So they were able to luckily get the GPS coordinates from the 911 call received by this hiker, which placed her in a swamp approximately a half a mile from Millbrook Lane. And the search was conducted by conservation officers who were able to locate her. They assisted with warm clothes and were able to walk her out to an ambulance around 9 o'clock. But she was treated for hypothermia and was transported to Cheshire Medical Center. So close call on that one.
Very. She was out there for hours. My goodness.
Yeah, that's scary.
Super close call.
Yep.
Good job, Fish and Game.
Yeah. It's crazy how busy it is right now. It's when you look historically, at rescues in December and January, there's usually nothing going on. This is crazy busy.
That's true.
December 31st, ice climber assisted by nearby climbers after being struck in the head by falling ice. So Mountain Rescue Service, Fish and Game responded to Willie Slide in Hart's location. I don't know where that is. Is that just Mount Willie, below Mount Willie?
Yeah, the slides, when you're coming through the notch heading towards Bartlett, the slides on the left.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And the right.
Yeah, that's
those massive slides.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
First responders, located 37-year-old gentleman from Dover, New Hampshire, who was being assisted down the trail by his climbing partner and other climbers. This gentleman had been ice climbing when a falling piece of ice struck him in the helmet, resulting in a head injury. So this is why you wear a helmet when you're doing ice climbing. There was another group that assisted lowering the gentleman to the base of the slide and then assisted him down the trail. So this guy's an experienced ice climber, had all the right equipment and gear, and I guess the recent warm weather has made ice unpredictable, and officials urge climbers to use extra caution when venturing outside. But good thing he had a helmet on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most do.
Yeah.
It's rare to not see a climber out there without the helmets.
Yeah, exactly. And then this last one here, this was on December 31st as well, around 6 p.m. this is December 30th, 6 p.m., injured hiker on Falling Waters Trail. This was a 63-year-old lady from New York. She had slipped on the ice and sustained a non-life-threatening injury about a quarter mile up Falling Waters Trail. So who knows? It could have just been a tourist poking around up there too. They were able to carry her out to the trailhead with the assistance of some good Samaritans. And quick one, she was out of there by 6 o'clock. The call came in. She was on her way by 7:30.
Yeah, I mean, it was just basically past the bridge of Falling Waters.
Actually, no. In the article, it does say her and her husband had spent the day hiking Franconia Ridge Loop, and they were well outfitted. So she just wiped out in the last quarter mile.
Yeah, excuse me. It happens.
That's bad luck.
Well, those are the calls that you appreciate, like, ooh, it's quick and easy.
Yeah, exactly. So one reminder for the listeners that it is around January 1st now, so now's a good time for you to buy your Hike Safe card so you're covered for the entire year. And just keep that in mind. Really easy to just grab that, help out the Search and Rescue Fund.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I got. Stomp, anything else?
2023? No, I look forward to chatting with you and Ty soon and getting up on Pierce with who knows who, all 40 of you.
Yeah. Just remember, if you're going to join a cult, make sure that it's a cat cult.
Right. Free Daphne.
Free Daphne.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Here's Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at